Give me the green.
Hello, sorry about that.
Mr. Chair, we're live.
Thank you, Mr. Flint. Good morning, everyone. I'm going to call the meeting to order. My name is George Santos. I'm the chair of the Norfolk County Police Services Board. I'd like to welcome all members and guests to the September 28th of 2022 Police Services Board meeting. I would like to remind everyone that our meetings are web streamed and televised. I would also ask to ensure that your phones are on silence mode, to keep your cameras on and mute yourself when you're speaking. And of course, remember to unmute yourself when not speaking. Or when you're actually speaking, sorry. If you're joining us virtually, please use Microsoft Teams raise your hand feature icon to be called upon and remove it after it's finished and after you're speaking. With that, I will call the September 28th, 2022 Norfolk Police Services Board meeting to order. So with that, I would ask that we take a moment of silence and reflection, and I would ask everyone to stand in recognition of the passing of a previous OPP officer by the name of the late Stanley Dennis Gotch. So with that, I would ask that we share a moment of silence. Okay, thank you, everyone. Just so that everyone is aware, our OPP family and myself and my family attended the celebration of life in St. Catharines last month for a very good man that will be missed. So with that, I'll move on to the agenda. Point 2, the approval of the agenda and changes to the agenda and the amendments to the agenda. So my understanding through the board secretary is we'll be adding item 6.1, Mrs. April Scarlett, in regards to the cannabis control. So that everyone is aware. And then also 10.1 question period for media/public. So those are the two that we'll add to the items. So if there are no other changes, may we have a motion to approve the agenda as amended? Okay, Member Van Houten, and we need a seconder. Okay, very good. All in favor? Great, that's carried. We'll move on to point number 3, declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest? Seeing none, we'll continue on. Okay, very good. Point number 4 of the agenda, confirmation of the minutes from the previous meeting. So everyone has in front of them the minutes of 4.1 Police Services Board meeting of May the 18th of 2022, which is on page 3 of the agenda. And we have 4.2 Special Police Services Board meeting minutes of June the 29th of 2022 on page 8. Board members, you're all on page. Unless there are any errors or omissions, may I have a motion to approve the minutes as presented? Vice Chair Huffman. Seconded by Mayor Chop. All in favor? Great, thank you. That's carried. Okay, so we're moving on presentations. Do we have any presentations? I see none here. Vice Chair. No. Okay, so we will move on. Point number 6, just moving along with the agenda here. So I understand we have one deputation today, as everyone can see. 6.1, as we refer to, Ms. Scarlett. So April, if you want to attend the podium, just so that you're aware, you have 10 minutes. I know it was referenced to 5 minutes, but my understanding with board policy, it's 10 minutes to speak. So welcome. Sorry, there's a red button. It says talk. You'll see a red light.
Well, just like it wasn't that. Okay. All right. Good morning, everyone. My name is April Scarrett, and I live on Woodland Drive, which is off of Highway 24, just south of the Harmony Bakery. My husband and I have lived in this area for 20 years, and we have 2 daughters, 25 and 23, and a 4-year-old son. I would first like to thank you for the opportunity to express some of my concerns as a tax-paying resident of Norfolk County regarding the past and present illegal activity. This illegal activity centers around the multiple Tier 2 cannabis production facilities throughout our county that are linked to organized crime out of the GTA. According to OPP Deputy Commissioner Chuck Cox, the illegal cannabis trade continues to be dominated by organized crime. The legalization of cannabis has not removed the involvement of these organized crime groups, as it remains to be a lucrative commodity and is often used to fund other criminal activities. Our first encounter with one of the facilities was in the spring of 2017, a full year prior to its decriminalization and about 6 months after the federal government began to hastily implement the designated grower legislation. A facility directly across the street from our house at 2492 Highway 24, which had only one civic address associated with it, began its large-scale production. This 171,000 square foot commercial greenhouse began its operation to produce as a designated grower for 4 licenses. Depending on the amount of the prescription for each of the licenses, one may be looking at something in the neighborhood of 1,200 to 2,000 plants at any point in time based on other numbers from other designated grower sites and media articles. The obnoxious smell emanating from the site has been well discussed and documented, so I will focus instead on what I perceive to be the obvious illegality of these operations. During the summer of 2019, several 40-foot transport trucks and many 28-foot commercial cargo trucks were coming in and out of that site on a weekly basis. Keep in mind, this is for 4 personal licenses. My husband followed a few of these vehicles to other greenhouses in the area. These facts were reported to the OPP, and yet no one ever followed up with us or asked any additional information. One site eventually led to a multi-million-dollar raid years later. The other site is still in operation. My understanding is that no one other than the person who has the license and their designate is allowed to physically touch the plants being grown. And yet we witnessed on a daily basis dozens of farm workers moving in and out of the facility. The workers were housed in an adjacent property with all the windows blacked out, and one would never see them outside. Groceries were being delivered to the houses via a cube truck. I have serious concerns that these individuals were indeed illegal undocumented workers. During the height of the COVID, when OPP was checking in on migrant workers to ensure that health restrictions were being followed, I witnessed an OPP officer go to one of these houses, knock on the door, and then immediately turn around and leave without even bothering to wait to see if someone was going to answer. Wednesday, May 11th, 2022 was a long-awaited day for the residents in our area. Norfolk County Bylaw and Fire Marshal were accompanied by OPP to examine the facility for bylaw and/or fire infractions. The size and scope of the cannabis production was obvious, and video of the site was taken. The site was then left unattended and unsecured for a week until a search warrant was executed. On May 17th, 2022, the warrant was served and executed. By that point, all plants on the site had been destroyed. And an interesting note, an interesting drug seizure of 2,000 live cannabis plants took place near Rona, resulting from an OPP ride program just after midnight on May 12, 2022. This was the day after the first entrance into the Highway 24 site by fire and bylaw enforcement while the facility was left unsecured. The OPP estimated cannabis value for the raid was $20 million, which I believe to be a conservative estimate. Based on those figures provided by the OPP and the fact that one can get up to 4 to 5 harvests in a year, we are now talking about an illegal facility that was grossing approximately $100 million a year. That site had been operating for at least 5 years. This means that approximately $500 million was illegally garnered from that site alone. Fast forward to today, that site is currently up for sale and is listed in an as-is condition. This makes local residents very concerned about the condition of existing drainage ponds on the site, what pesticides were being used in a completely unsupervised and unregulated manner at this facility. Is there soil contamination? What was being done with the effluent water used on site? Has groundwater been contaminated? The list of potentially significant negative environmental impacts on that site and on potential surrounding residential neighborhoods is staggering. Not even 300 meters south of that location, on the same side of the street, is 2466 Highway 24, the site of the former Bayview Flowers. That 75,000 square foot site probably started its illegal cannabis production around 2020 and is still in operation today. Visits from 28-foot commercial trucks still occur several times a week, as well as visits from the local disposal company. This site is most certainly also selling smaller quantities to individuals as well. Dozens and dozens of times we have had cars, pickup trucks, and small rental cube vans pull down our dead-end street and then wait at the side of the road in front of our house. When we go out there to take pictures of their vehicles, they immediately drive away. One driver was bold enough to get out of her vehicle and ask why I was taking the pictures. When I told her we are taking plate numbers to turn over to the police because of an illegal grow-up functioning across the street, she begged me not to disclose her plate number because of a previous criminal conviction and promised never to come down our street again. We have taken makes, models, and plate numbers of these vehicles and reported them to the OPP, only to have no one ever follow up and investigate. I have offered the OPP dates, times, pictures, plate numbers, and descriptions of witnessed events for both of these illegally operating sites, only to have no one ever stop by to investigate or even talk to us. This site has been fined by bylaw and yet still runs, not surprisingly, considering the hundreds of millions of dollars of profits that are potentially available to be made. The people running these sites are parasites to our community. They do not employ any local residents. They do not pay any commercial business taxes. The property taxes they do pay are based on agricultural zoning and are therefore proportionally very low. They have no care or concerns regarding property and maintenance. They are completely unsupervised and unregulated, and no one seems to care. Each branch of government seems to content to play political football and blame each other for the problems. Law enforcement who pass by the sites on a daily basis also come off as being ambivalent. That leaves the actual law-abiding and tax-paying residents questioning who actually is in charge and what possible reasons there could be for this type of seemingly laissez-faire attitude. Our county, based on a recent survey, has an excess of 100 illegal cannabis production sites. The jurisdiction with the next highest number is 18. That number indicates that there are quite a few local issues that fall into the political and law enforcement arena that need to be addressed. The OPP needs to step up and start to work with county bylaw officials and taxpayers to enforce existing laws. Residents of our county are tired and scared of the organized crime that has been allowed to move in and fester and pollute our community with little opposition from the OPP, the Police Services Board, and both elected and unelected county officials. If one site can generate hundreds of millions of dollars in gross profits over a 5-year period, what would these criminal organizations be willing to do to protect those illegal profits? Community policing of our downtown areas and enforcement of traffic violations are important parts of law enforcement. The larger and more difficult investigations into these organized crime units needs to be focused on significantly more, and resources from other areas need to be reallocated and prioritized for the purpose of eliminating them. Norfolk County can eliminate this scourge. Municipalities in York Region have implemented an operational system that has essentially eliminated the highly profitable organized crime structure surrounding cannabis production.
April, just 1 minute.
Yeah, okay. I'm almost done. By adopting an operating procedure that involves the collaboration between residents, municipal councils, bylaw, fire, and building departments, and the police to combat criminality. We feel that we have been abandoned by law enforcement and there's been a loss of trust. We are not asking for much. We just want elected and unelected individuals to do their jobs. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mrs. Thank you, Mrs. Scarrett. I would ask Mrs. Scarrett that if you can go back to the podium, please, and thank you, April. Are there any questions to this deputation to our board?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you so much, April, for bringing the concerns forward. I was just trying to follow through. Okay, initially there was 2 sites, right?
Mhm.
And so one of them is closed down.
After many, many
Yeah.
years, yes.
Okay, and there was charges laid on that one, I believe, right?
I believe so.
And there might be same owners of the second site, or is it some totally different?
I have no idea. I would not know. I mean, it
No,
appears
no,
that it's someone
understood.
different, but
Yeah.
they're all, we followed trucks and they've gone to other ones in the area. So there probably is some connection somewhere along the line, I imagine.
Understood. Nothing.
Vice Chair Huffman?
Thank you, Chair Santos, through you to Ms. Scarrett. And just to be very clear, so every time that you contacted the OPP, you say that you never got any response at all?
No.
Okay, and
We haven't got response from anyone, to be honest, other than the people in the community that will help us.
so is that over a 4-year period?
2017, it started. We didn't really understand what was going on at the time, just because of just sort of ignorance. The smell sort of gave it away. It still does, but yeah, within maybe from 2018 on, maybe perhaps I would say. Yeah.
And did you ever have a chance to contact your ward counselor?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Any other questions of Mrs. Scarrett? Mrs. Scarrett, I have a few questions. I met you this morning. Thank you for attending this morning. You mentioned here that the OPP never followed up. So that's a concern for the Police Services Board. Now, do you have any dates and times and when you called and any specifics?
I don't have them on me. It has all that information documented, but I don't.
Because I know from past experience, the OPP do their due diligence. But
Right.
from what I hear from yourself, that wasn't the case. So if you could be so kind to get those dates and times,
Sure.
and we could
Certainly.
reference that to our new police chief, Kays, to look into that. I take that seriously.
Yep.
Also, made some notes here, and this is concerning because you say you've lost trust. I take that very seriously. So you've lost trust in our enforcement? Is that what you're basically saying?
I don't see that there's any care around, like, it's sort of like, I feel like we're kind of like a joke. Like, it's not important to them. I'm sort of a law and order kind of person, and my mind can't wrap around why there's a danger in this. This is organized crime, and there's lots of money involved, like lots. And they will do a lot of things to keep that money flow going. Like, I mean, it's just, the amount of money is just phenomenal. And I just don't understand. I don't get it. I don't get it. Our taxes go up every year. We don't have sewer. We don't have water. These people are just, they're above the law. I don't understand. I don't know what's going on with this. I don't.
So, Mrs. Scarrett, behind you is our chief of police. I would ask Chief Kays if you could just respond to those comments, if you could, please, and thank you.
Okay, good morning, through you, Chair. Uh, To respond specifically to her exact complaints, I can't do that today because like you said, I don't have specific content in order to respond. I'd like to think that we have been doing enforcement wise what we can, and we do work closely with bylaw, but again, to respond fulsomely, I would have to have some more information to be able to do that.
Okay, thank you, Chief. So if I may, Chief, after the meeting, if there would be an opportunity to speak with Mrs. Scarrett and get the details in regards to the dates, and hopefully we could look into this and get our due diligence and put this young lady at rest. Because I mean, you know, when you hear the word fear or loss of trust, that of course doesn't sit well with myself and of course the board. And I do trust from past experience with the OPP, they've done their due diligence, and I know they will continue to, and this board is very trustworthy of them. And so, you know, we are a vessel, and I think once this deputation is over with, this will be looked into, and I know there's concerns. So just so you're aware, Mrs. Scarrett, you're not the first person to come to the Police Services Board. I've been here for 3 years, and we've heard various individuals from Norfolk County. And this isn't new to Vice Chair Huffman, Mayor Chop, or Member Van Houten, and our also Member at Large, Mr. Cruz, who unfortunately is not here today. He did send his regrets. So we are aware. Does that satisfy, if you can go to the mic and just have a clear understanding, if that kind of helps, if you can have a meeting with the OPP and if need be, the chair of the Police Services Board?
Yeah, I think that helps. I just think it's been so obvious. I don't even have the words to say what, like, to me, it's a very obvious thing. It's, and not just that, but they destroy everything they come across. I mean, like, they leave a path of destruction. I mean, just look at the abandoned sites, what they've done. These are houses people could live in. You see, there's a housing shortage, and like, there's multiple houses involved in all of these, and like, the people could live in, and that they just ruin everything. I mean, take a look at the property across the street from me. I mean, like, no, like, it's just so obvious. I don't know why nothing can be done about it. That's just my feeling. Like, I know that everyone's aware of it. It's not, to me, that's not there. To me, it just seems like there's just more to this going on, that there's somebody that's getting money. I don't know who, but somebody that's in authority, probably, because it just seems to me like there's not the urgency to do anything about it. That's what I feel.
Mrs. Scarrett, I will put this over to our Chief of Police. Chief Case, please.
Thank you. I think a meeting would be advantageous. I think being able to explain our legislative authorities and the differences between the bylaw enforcement and what the OPP can do might be helpful. And an understanding that we have a dedicated street crimes team that does a lot of this enforcement. I mean, that's what I count.
But this is what we get every time. We get it passed over to, like, it's the bylaw person's fault. No, it's the OPP. No, it's the federal government. No, it's the provincial government. We have talked to everyone. It's been years, and I don't know why. Normal citizens aren't allowed to behave in this way. Why are these groups special? Why are they special? Why are they protected? Because they are. That's all. That's all. I don't
Mrs.
know what
Scarrett?
else to say.
I hear your frustration. Member Van Houten, our provincial appointee, has a question.
No, thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, I find your deputation absolutely stellar, and I appreciate your honesty and the emotion and everything involved in this, because these are serious matters. There's no doubt about it. So my thought is, and I appreciate that the chief of police's response as well, we need proper follow-up here, and I think that's what we're all talking about, and to get to the bottom of these type of things. And to ensure that everything that can be done is getting done. Because these are serious concerns, and I very much appreciated being brought up like this here.
Mrs. Garrett, I echo the provincial appointees' comments. I want to put you at ease that the chief and I and our board try in the next day or two to meet with you and your husband, okay, and the family, and hopefully shed some light on this. You've brought together some points. You've used some words that have concerned me. Hopefully we can sit down and further this. I know that in the past, you referenced to the date of May the 17th of 2020. You referenced May the 12th of 2022. We know very well that there was an operation there. We can't comment on that because it's with the courts, but we've heard your deputation. And with that, are there any other questions of the board? I see Mayor Chop's hand. Is that correct?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I was just trying to find the email from Jim Milton.
Madam Mayor, 1 second. It's hard to hear you.
Sorry, Madam Mayor.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can. Can you start over, please, and thank you?
Yes, I just wanted to bring up the email that everybody would have received from Jim Milton with the cannabis stats updates. I don't think it's fair to say that there's people in positions of authority here that are taking the suggestion of a kickback to allow this stuff to continue on. I think that our staff have done an enormous amount, and I don't think that their success in this area is actually credited enough. But I will give you just some of the stats from the latest email that was sent out. So 68 cannabis files of the 122 suspected operations have actually been closed. 48 of those were documented as unfounded, 16 concluded in court. So again, 16 operations have already been taken to court. 43 locations have been charged to date. 86 individuals and companies have been charged with 174 zoning bylaw offenses. 27 of those locations are currently before the court. 16 investigations have now been fully concluded in court, resulting in $131,500 in fines levied, and 14 court orders have been issued not to produce cannabis. 28 files remain to be fully investigated. 23% of all of the files reported to date. Jim says that he expects that number to be in the teens shortly as they finish investigating a number of these seasonal hoop houses. So while I appreciate certainly our deputation's comments and the frustration, and I can imagine what that is like living near one of these operations, I also just want to point out that between our bylaw and our OPP, they have done an enormous amount here in Norfolk County to address the many operations that we faced at the start of our term. So we've gone from 120 something down to in the teens over the past few years, and I think that staff and OPP deserve to be commended for that, and that perhaps there's two sides to every story, and we are doing a lot to investigate these operations. And council has always stood behind pursuing more aggressive enforcement. In fact, we even hired an additional bylaw officer just to handle these cannabis files.
Madam Mayor, if I may, the stats you're referring to was sent to staff. You're referring to counselors and staff at Norfolk County?
Mr. Chair, just to note that in the procedural bylaw, there's only 20 minutes following a deputation or 10 minutes after deputation for questions and answers, and we've now reached that limit. So we either need to receive and file this deputation's information or waive the rules of procedure if we want to continue this discussion.
I think, in all due respect, as chair of the Police Services Board, and I hope that the Police Services members are also on board, that we give it another 5 minutes just to kind of wrap this up. I don't want to leave this open. It's a public forum. It's an opportunity for Mrs. Garrett. I mean, she's brought up some points that are concerning. And Madam Mayor, I just wanted to hopefully get an answer to that question. If you want me to repeat the question, I can, just in regards to stats.
So then,
Sorry, Madam Mayor,
Mr. Chair, then we need a motion right now to a 2/3 majority.
Okay, so Vice Chair Huffman, you've motioned. Okay, thank you. Seconded by Member Van Houten. All in favor? Okay, that's carried. Was your hand up, Madam Mayor?
I
Oh,
just want
thank you.
to
right.
question, Mr. Chair. So yes, the email went to all of council members as well as a number of staff members are also on the list. That includes the vice chair. And that is staff's procedure for sending out those stats. But you know, to be fair, we have presented those stats at multiple police services board meetings when the conversation around cannabis has arisen and other deputations have been made. So again, we have followed along with progress along the way of our staff pursuing these operations. You know, I know there's been some deputations that have wanted us to adopt a particular process or procedure that's being used in other municipalities. But I would say that our staff's process and procedure that they are using has been rather successful if we've gotten from 122 operations down to in the teens here in the next month or two by the end of the summer. So, you know, I think that's, again, I think that's commendable.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. You reference to the teens. So we're going from 120 to 12. I mean, that's remarkable if that's the case. So just for the board members that are here and of course to Madam Mayor, I'm wondering if Mr. Milson in the month of December, if we decide to meet in December, should come and enlighten us in reference to these numbers, because as the chair of the Police Service Board, if I'm speaking to people in the community and the question becomes, is 120 to 12, how is that possible? Was it with the assistance of the OPP? Was it without the assistance of the OPP? And we did that with one bylaw officer or two bylaw officers. And I understand it's one. Is that correct, Vice Chair Huffman? Right. So to me, that seems that we have a Superman that is doing excellent work and has been doing excellent work to bring it from 120 to 12. Those are my comments. Madam Mayor, I see your hand up. By all means.
Yes, we do have one person that is dedicated strictly to cannabis operations. I don't believe that that means that one of the other 6, I believe, bylaw officers don't touch on those operations. It's just that one member was specifically dedicated to cannabis enforcement. Plus, obviously, Mr. Milson has been involved with this, as well as legal counsel. And I believe that he has made a presentation here in the past where they have, and as well made presentations to council, which of course are public meetings as well, where they have articulated their success and their progress to date at several different occasions along the way.
Okay, Madam Mayor, thank you very much for those comments. I'm known as a realist. So if we have a bylaw officer that works from 9 to 5 and is able to do this, to me, it's amazing. So if I'm reassured today and the public's reassured that these numbers are correct, then we're headed in the right direction. What I heard from Mrs. Scarrett isn't that. So hopefully, Mrs. Scarrett, put you at ease. Within the next day or two, the chief and I will sit down with yourself and your husband and put you at ease, and hopefully the community at ease in that regard. I take this very seriously, and the board also, Vice Chair Huffman, the provincial appointee, and our Madam Mayor take this very seriously. And this isn't the first time we've heard complaints. This has plagued the board, and it's been ongoing. I can point the finger and say it's the federal government. The federal government can point and say it's the municipal government, and we can point to the OPP. But at the end of the day, we have to work together as a team. And I can give you my word that in the next few days, under the leadership of Chief Kays and her staff, that we'll definitely answer these questions. So the question of trust is very important. We'll build that back, and hopefully I don't have to hear the word loss of trust. I would like to hear the word we've gained the trust. That's paramount, okay? So are there any questions of the board? Vice Chair Huffman, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair Santos. Through you, I don't necessarily have a question, but I just want to make sure that we do follow through on a direction to staff to make sure that an invitation is extended to Mr. Milson to the December PSB meeting.
Thank you, Vice Chair Huffman. Taking that into account, I think we should have a motion to that so that there is follow through, because as everyone is aware, there's a lot of change in the next month or two. Okay, we have my position is open, number one, and I believe I am done at the end of October unless the Solicitor General's office renews it. More importantly is we have an election. So I think it's imperative that this board look to the future and ask Mr. Milson, who represents Norfolk County, and he's very well aware and has great experience, and hopefully can shed some light to these questions. So Vice Chair Huffman.
Mr. Chair, is this motion agreeable on the screen? That Jim Milson, bylaw supervisor, be invited to the next PSB meeting to provide a presentation regarding cannabis control?
And updates in the last 6 months, if that's possible. Because I would definitely like to see these numbers and how it's possible to go from 120 to 12. Like I said, I'm a realist, but unbelievable.
We'll need a mover and seconder, Mr. Chair, for that motion.
So do we have a mover? Okay, Van Houten. Sorry, Member Van Houten, seconded by Vice Chair Huffman. All in favor? Carried. Mrs. Garrett, thank you very much. May have a seat. So I'm looking at the agenda.
Mr. Chair, we need to receive and file that deputation still.
So do we have a motion to receive the deputation as information? Vice Chair Huffman, seconded by Member Van Houten. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Okay, thank you, everyone. We will move on to the agenda, consent to the agenda. Does any member wish to pull any item for further discussion of these points? So there are basically, from what I could see, there are 4 points. So we have 7.1, 7.2, 7.3, and 7.4. Are there any questions to our Chief of Police? Mayor Chop? Any questions? No? If not, Member Van Houten?
No, I'm good. Thank you,
Very
Mr.
good.
Chairman.
Chief Kays, I have a few questions in regards to the stats. So I'm going to ask that we all refer to page 29, the operational stats in July on page 35 of that category on page 35. Okay, so Chief Kays, what I see here with the Collision Reporting Center from last year to this year on page 35 of 58 is I noticed that there's an increase from 2021 and to 2022. I've done my math here and I'm looking at, okay, the stats for 2021 are 150. The stats in 2022 is 189. So Chief Kays, my question is this, when an accident takes place and police aren't required and an individual rear ends another individual and that individual goes into the detachment, based on that information, is that individual or one of the individuals charged for either following too close? Is that at the discretion of the staff or the officer at that center? Thank you.
Through you, Chair, there is no charges if it gets reported to the CRC. If an officer attends the collision, then the circumstances will dictate whether or not charges are laid. But if it's a collision reporting center report, then no charges are laid because the officers don't attend.
So if I may, Chief, if I'm following a vehicle and I rear-end the individual, we come to an agreement. We can both drive because both vehicles are drivable. We meet at the detachment, we report, it goes to the insurance. So you've reiterated that no charges. So no following too close, no points, demerits.
No, not if they're reported to the CRC.
I bring that to the attention of the OPP because I've heard from certain individuals that have had issues that won't be discussed, but they figure that this is a scapegoat, so to speak, where they can not have charges and deal with the issue at hand. And being that, of course, there's no injuries. So I just bring that to the attention of the OPP in regards to that, but thank you for your answer on that. Any questions? Any other questions? Okay. Sorry, Chief. I have two other questions and also the board members. On page 45 of the agenda, so I'm referring to page 45 of 58, which actually starts in at page 52. And Chief Kays, I want to thank you for giving us a narrative, a full narrative of what takes place. And I read this 2 days ago, the Community Mobilization Officer. It says here, work with Indwell Dogwood Suites on the new OPP downtown ESO office project expected to be completed. And the office is established and occupied by the end of September for patrol officers. So Chief, could you explain to me, because this is the first I've heard of it, what will take place? I mean, this is a positive approach, but thanks to your detailed notes, it's been brought to our attention. So if you could just expand on that, please, and thank you.
Yes, Chair. So it's an office that the members of the Norfolk OPP or other detachments, if they're in the area, can go and attend and park there and then go to foot patrol and be present in that area and utilize the facility there for work or follow-up or anything like that.
Okay, thank you. Vice Chair Huffman?
Thank you, Chair Santos. That has been one of the plans from the beginning with Indwell when it first came through to council, that there was talk of community agencies being in there, and the OPP were one of the first ones to agree to have an office downtown.
That's excellent. I'm glad to hear. What caught my attention was these notes. So thank you, Vice Chair. Member Van Houten?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just if I can make a comment, that was the first I've seen of these notes, and just that they come across very, very well. Just for the public, we get to see more. It's more detailed written. So maybe the entire report was shorter than before, but this is very effective because we learn from it as well. You know, like just as an example, like there's 108 media releases placed and why they were placed and how they were received by the community, all that type of thing. And even when it comes to other statistics that are actually explained. So I just wanted to commend that was kind of new, and I enjoyed it. I learned from it as well. So thank you.
Thank you, Member Van Houten. And I, of course, agree to that. I mean, the transparency is very important for public and, of course, the Police Services Board instead of just seeing numbers. So with that, I have another question. I know I'm taking my time, but I definitely would like these answers to these questions. On page 54 of 58, I also note we're referencing MVCs, motor vehicle collisions. The concern I have here is that the numbers are fairly high. As you can see, Chief, on page 54 of 58, this is in reference to August of 2020, we have 6 fatalities in Norfolk County, fairly high. We had 3 last year, so we've doubled. When I look at personal injury, and this is a high number, we go from 81 to 86. And then I see personal damage from 451 to 535. Chief, can you enlighten me on these numbers, if you could, please? And what's causing this?
Chair, I don't know if I can give you a specific answer as to what is causing this. I can say that across the region, our numbers are up. I would say that it's likely due to more traffic on the roadways. Also, COVID certainly probably affected the traffic in the area. And now that restrictions are open and there's more people going to work and now school and everything, I'm sure that's reflected in those numbers.
Thank you, Chief Case. Okay, and another question on that point on page 55, which is the flip side of 58. An alarming number here that caught my eye, and it should catch the eye, of course, of our board, is robberies. We go from 5 robberies last year in 2021 to 12 year to date in August. And that's an increase of 140%. So Chief, could you elaborate or kind of give us an indication of what type of robberies are we speaking of? I mean, we've heard through the media, but if you can just enlighten me also on that number, please, and thank you.
Yes, Chair, I apologize. I don't have specifics as to what you're asking, the specifics of what type of robberies. I'd have to follow up on that to provide you a more thorough explanation as to what they are.
Thank you, thank you, Chief Case, for that. And if we could get that hopefully for the next meeting. I see Vice Chair Huffman's hand. Mrs. Hussman.
Thank you, Chair Santos. Through you to Inspector Kays. My concern is not that robberies are not a concern. It's a great concern. It's gone up 140%. But I'm looking here at a stat that the sexual assault was, we were down earlier, and now with the year to date, we're increased from 44 to 57 with an increase of 29.5%. Do you have, I know probably not just at the tip of your fingers here, are these charges, are these sexual assaults, are they resulting in subsequent charges to the individuals?
Through you, Chair. I don't have those specific details for you. Again, the numbers of increase of sexual assaults, we could look at it 2 ways. We could look at it as a negative. We could also look at it as a good thing that, people are coming in and reporting. So again, I hate to go back to saying COVID too. I'm sure that's really impacted people coming into the office and face-to-face walk-ins. And our officers are out more doing proactive because of those restrictions being lifted. And, it could be through other investigations that we do get those kind of reports. But to say the number of charges that are laid as per how many reports, I don't have that, but it's certainly something that we can look at adding to this report, because I do like more detailed explanations of our statistics. I think it does just in reflecting as to what we're actually doing. So I can certainly get that information.
Thank you, Chief. Does that answer your question? Sure. Okay. And my last question, Chief Case, believe it or not, and to the board here, and I'm going to be very honest with you, I'm just totally disheartened when I looked at these stats for July and August of impaired driving in Norfolk County. And I use the word disheartening. You could tell, by my voice, this really hits home when you start to see impaired driving and the charges here. I just am flabbergasted. And I'm looking at, and these stats were sent to myself. I had requested it and I sent it through to the board secretary. I don't believe Vice Chair Huffman or Provincial Appointee Van Houten or Mayor Chop have these, but I can tell you this, what I can see in front of me is concerning. The alcohol readings in the month of July and August, 0.08 is basically the legal limit. And when I start to see 200 plus, 2 people charged with 200 plus, 160 to 199, 10 people charged, And these are readings, alcohol readings. These readings are high, too high, actually. I don't know what's happening in Norfolk County, but I can tell you, and I saw it this morning coming in, the corner building here at a public library hit by a drunk driver. You know, we see what's taking place. The downtown Simcoe, just I believe a week ago or a week and a half ago, a vehicle rammed one of the buildings. This is something that is continuing to happen each and every day. And when I look at these numbers, the police are doing an excellent job, and the RIDE program is out in full force. But Chief Case, I just want you to relay to the officers that are doing their due diligence and arresting these individuals. And when I look at the fail or refuse and the alerts, the numbers are very high. So it must be disheartening for the police to see this. But I want to just reassure you that the Police Services Board appreciates and continues to make something very clear that if the Solicitor General's office has any grants or monies available to increase RIDE programs, I would suggest we take advantage of that to have our community safer than it is. When I'm looking at these numbers, again, I would caution anyone who wants to, I'm lost for words. So Chief Case, if you have any comments to this, and if the members of the board want to look at these numbers, they're flabbergasting.
So Chair Santos, I'd like to respond to that for sure. I can tell you that it's not just our detachment, it's across the region, that there is a significant increase in impaired driving. I can tell you from my chief of West region that there is a significant communication from him to ensure that every shift that we have a RIDE program. So again, thank you for the suggestion about the grant, but I can tell you that every shift we do conduct at least one RIDE program, which will then certainly reflect on the statistics of looking at that it is going up because we are out there doing significant proactive policing in order to stop impaired driving and drug related.
Thank you, Chief Case. That's reassuring. Members of the board, I'm wondering if we, as a board, should send a letter to our provincial judge or judges to make it clear that impaired driving is affecting us all. And we, as a board, when I see these numbers, of course, these numbers they're alleged, but they're going through the court system. And I just want to reassure the provincial court system that this is on our radar, and it affects us all. We're all stakeholders in our community, and as a police service board, we are a vessel. And I'm just wondering, and I'll put this out to the board, if a letter should come from us to the provincial court judges, just to let them know that, look, the numbers are on the rise, and they know this, but is there anything from our standpoint that we can do? Or should a letter go directly to the Ministry of Attorney General that handles the court system, or to the Solicitor General's office, basically saying that this isn't just a Norfolk County problem, this is a Zone 4 or a provincial problem or a national problem. So I put that out. So Mayor Chop, Vice Chair, and Provincial Appointee Van Houten, I leave the floor open for comment. Vice Chair Huffman.
Thank you, Chair Santos. Through you, I recommend that we send a letter to both the Attorney General and to the courts, stating our concerns over the increase in the rise of impaired driving in Zone 4, Norfolk County.
So what I will do is the Attorney General, I understand they look after the courts, and the Solicitor General look after the police and, of course, the law. So what I can definitely do is hit both ministers in that regard. Is that fair to say, Vice Chair Huffman? Mayor Chop, any questions? Member Van Houten?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. No questions. I guess that's an effective approach. I would support that. But we are part of zone 4, I believe, or whatever. I think, as the chief mentioned, that it's all over. So sometimes it's highly effective if the whole group is in support of it. When it passes through to the Solicitor General's office or to whomever it is, it holds more clout. So I wonder if there's also a step of talking to with the zone. If this is a bigger, broader issue, that it would heighten the effectiveness if we had other detachments on board as well, or are seeing the same thing.
Member
Like the
Van
whole
Houten,
zone, yeah.
that's an excellent point. And I think, as everyone is aware, we have the Ontario Association of Police Service Boards. So we can CC the Ontario Association of Police Services Boards plus Zone 4, which of course encompasses Oxford, Woodstock, Brantford, Halton, Burlington, Hamilton, down to Niagara, in St. Catharines area. So yeah, definitely we can follow through. Is everyone on board with that? Sorry, Board Secretary.
Mr. Chair, I have a draft motion before you. That the
Okay.
board send a letter to the Attorney General, Solicitor General, Provincial Court Judges, and Zone 4 of the OAPSB regarding the effects of impaired driving. Is that agreeable, Mr. Chair?
I think it looks great. So what I will do is I'll ask that we have a mover and a seconder in regards to that motion. Does everyone understand the motion? Vice Chair Huffman, please.
Thank you, Chair Santos. Through you, I'm just wondering with regarding the effective impaired driving and the increase, I just want to mention the increase, that there has been a substantial increase in the rates. So I know, I mean, the effect is one thing, but there's been an increase as well. Thank you.
Thank you,
Aaron.
Vice Chair Huffman. Okay, so can we have a mover and a seconder to approve this? So again, the board send a letter to the Attorney General, Solicitor General, Provincial Court Judges, and Zone 4 of the Ontario Association of Police Service Board regarding the effect of the increase in impaired driving. So Vice Chair Huffman, you have moved. Do we have a seconder?
Just a question.
A question?
One more question. I'm just thinking out loud here a moment. Can we substantiate the increase going back over the last 5 years, let's say? Sometimes the figures, they change quick because, just one circumstance, like some of them start with low numbers. So even a couple increase, I'm not trying to minimize this at all. I just know that they'll want to have it substantiated. I know we get reports sometimes that we go back over a 5-year span and it shows more accurately. It came up a couple times today already, and I agree with that. We had a pandemic in the middle. So, and I noticed it on former reports as well, where some numbers dipped way down because nobody was out and about, right? And then suddenly they are. And so it would be interesting to have it thorough when you put it forth, because they'll want it thorough when that it can be substantiated. Otherwise, you won't get action. You know what I mean? So I'm wondering if we would need that first to come out. Just a fruit for thought. I'm just trying to think out loud here to make sure that what we do will work.
Any comments on what Mr. Van Houten has said? Chief Case?
Yes, through you, Chair. I have them right in front of me. Actually, I pulled the stats. We can get those numbers. There is an increase for the last 5 years from our detachment and across the regions.
Okay, thank you, Chief Case. So with that, thank you.
I'll second the motion now.
All right, thank you, Member Van Houten. Being that there's a seconder, we will definitely need to vote. All in favor? Okay, that's carried. Okay, and then I'm also going to need any other questions in regards to 7.1, 7.2, 7.3, or 7.4? Seeing none, we'll move on.
Oh, Mr. Chair, we can receive the consent agenda then as information.
Yes. So we'll need a mover Member Van Houten, seconded by Vice Chair Huffman. All in favor? Okay, that's carried. Okay, so we're moving on. Reports deferred from the previous meeting. So that is point 8 of the agenda. We have no reports deferred from the previous meeting, so we'll move on to point 9, items for consideration. So there are 5 items for consideration. First, we'll start off with Chief Kays will provide the police chief's update. So Chief Kays.
Thank you, Chair. I believe we covered a lot of what was on the document. I will provide a couple other initiatives at the office that we have ongoing. Our speed campaigns continue to be conducted, and as a result, 15 charges were laid. This is for the month of August, along with 9 warnings. And the campaigns continue to focus on our high risk and high complaint areas. As mentioned earlier, our media releases, so our media officer continues to do an excellent job. In the community, 108 media releases were placed on the portal for the month of August. The releases are completed to educate and create awareness and emphasize the need for public health in solving crime. Our social media, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook is utilized often in everything. Again, our media officer does an excellent job utilizing social media. I just want to highlight, I mentioned earlier about our street crimes team. During July and August, they were involved in 206 investigations. That is a significant amount of investigations over a 2-month period, which included 23 warrants. And as a result of those warrants, 22 drug-related charges and 26 criminal code charges were laid. The total value of drug seizures was $22,400, and cash seizures was over $1,000, almost $2,000, and our total value of property seizures was $63,000. That's a significant impact to the community as they see direct results with, property-related crimes. Our focus patrols continue. We still have 1 open, and we continue to do our focus patrols in the areas that come to our attention as well. We mentioned the community mobilization officers who continues to work closely with Norfolk County and Haldeman Norfolk Social Services on homeless encampments and trespassing on private property and the rehousing of those individuals. We also continue with our MCERT program, which is working very well in this community. Those are my updates other than the ones that we already spoke about.
Thank you, Chief Kays. Excellent work of your officers, our officers. Any questions of the board to Chief Kays? Seeing no questions, I will ask that a motion be received to update as information. Vice Chair Huffman, seconded by Member Van Houten. All in favor? Okay, it's carried. Sorry, we'll move on once again. Chief Kay, you have the floor. An update on introduction of Staff Sergeant Andy Fox, Acting Staff Sergeant Page, and Staff Sergeant Jeff McNorgan. Chief Kays.
Thank you, Chair. So as a lot are aware that we've had some supervisory changes at Norfolk. To my left is newly appointed Staff Sergeant McNorgan. Comes to us with significant experience. So I'm happy to announce he's recently been promoted and will continue to be in Norfolk hopefully for a long time. And then newly promoted Andrew Fox. So he currently is supervising at Brant County Detachment, but will be here starting on Monday. I would like to take this time to thank Acting Staff Sergeant Page. So he is Sergeant, one of our road supervisors in uniform in Norfolk, has been at this attachment for a significant amount of time. And he's been acting in this position for 6 months. And I want to take the time to thank him. He's done a significant amount of work for Norfolk, and he's been excellent. And we will miss him, although he will be on the road. So you will see him out and about in the community. So.
Thank you, Chief Kays. Any questions of the board? Welcome aboard, Staff Sergeant McNorton and Acting Staff Sergeant Page. I want to thank you for your continual service. And I also want to thank you for your follow-up. I know that I've emailed on a number of occasions and very impressed with the due diligence and the quick response, both of yourself and Staff Sergeant McNorton in regards to a number of issues that have been brought up in the community, but with reference to the stats. So thank you once again and keep up the good work, and welcome aboard for sure under the leadership of our Chief Kays. So thank you once again. I'll ask the question if there are any questions of the board. Do I have a motion to receive the update as information? So Member Van Houten, seconded by Mayor Chop. All in favor? Perfect, that's carried. We'll move on to 9.3 of the agenda, which is the second page. So we're getting there. Slow but sure. Now, the floor will be given to Vice Chair Huffman, of course, as Councillor Huffman update in reference to the Ontario Association of the Police Service Board meeting, spring conference that was attended near the end of May of this year. So Vice Chair Huffman, if you could, please.
Thank you, Chair Santos, through you. I apologize. I'll be reading from my notes, so that's there on my phone. So the 2022 OAPSB Spring Conference and AGM was held May 26th to the 27th in Toronto. It was a hybrid event, so there was an opportunity for individuals who were unable to travel to participate. Let me just get here. Over 2 days, we welcomed several speakers and panels presenting to those attending in person and online. The subjects included modernizing police governance, equity, diversion and inclusion, human trafficking in rural communities, which was of it was very riveting, that session. Policing in 2023 and beyond, and keynote speaker Dr. Ivan Joseph, who shared his views on fueling success through inclusivity and diversity. The sessions were very relevant, they were timely, they were informative, and had an opportunity to meet many individuals from around the province, some from very, very far up north. So it was handy that we were close to the airport because many of them did fly in for the conference. I do want to say that one of the things that will be happening is that there will be a change in the number of directors from the OAPSB. It will increase from 15 to 17 with the intent that 2 new candidates will be elected, 1 candidate from North Zone 1A and 1 Indigenous candidate at large. The term of the office for each director will increase from 1 year to a 3-year term to allow for more consistency. These changes are in anticipation of the review and refocus of the OAPSB. The surveys were sent out, and it was a resounding success of the conference. And also one of the things that was spoken about was that in the future, when the province makes the changes to the Police Services Board, there will no longer be permitted any individuals who were previously police officers to be on the board on Police Services Boards.
That's correct. Thank you, Vice Chair Huffman. Any questions of Vice Chair Huffman? I just wanted to also add to what Vice Chair Huffman has said. I also attended the first day. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to attend the second day because I was in London picking our new Chief of Police. So what I've taken out of the Ontario Association of Police Services Board is this. The issues that Norfolk County are dealing with are also being dealt with our neighbors to the west, which is Oxford, and the neighbors to the east, which of course is Dunnville and Haldeman counties, and of course to the north, Brant. So when we speak of cannabis, when we speak of speeding, when we speak of the question of borderless policing, it's happening throughout the province. One thing that came out of this conference for me was the question of trust. As we know, policing's changing, and trust is paramount. And we heard that earlier today. And this, of course, was something that was brought up. And trust is number one. And I think that we have it with the OPP. And I know it has been questioned, but we can definitely sit down and talk about it. And it's important that the public is aware that the detachment is open. So if there's any questions or concerns, there's staff sergeants, our chief is there, and they're able to take the time to listen. With that, just to add to Vice Chair Huffman, what I've also noted under Section 10 policing, as everyone is aware, it's a very big difference from municipal policing. So Section 10 versus the municipal policing, difference between night and day. So just so that everybody understands, Section 10 policing, we're limited, but we're an oversight body, Police Service Board is, of the OPP. So coming here today to speak on issues, our role is to let our councillors, our mayor know that there's frustration. And the role of people and an open forum is important. So when people show up and there's a concern, that's a good thing. It might not be in your eyes, but I think it's important for the board to be used as a vessel so that these answers could be brought to the questions that have been posed to not only Norfolk, but also, of course, to the province of Ontario. So with that, that's what I took of the full day there. And I met a number of individuals from Prince County, Prince Edward, I think it was called Prince Edward County, and Ottawa. So again, definitely numerous issues. We have our own, but they're definitely spread out throughout the whole province of Ontario. So I just wanted to let you know that I myself learned that we have to work together as a team. I mean, it sounds like common sense, but common sense is no longer common. So when there's issues that have to be addressed, they have to be brought to the forefront. And that's what we're here for. And today is a clear example of that. So I thank the public and the people that are online, and under the leadership of our chief of police, I do believe that things can only get better, for sure. And of course, with the Police Service Board, we have 2 provincial appointees, and we have 1 appointee from our community at large, from Norfolk County, which is Member Cruz. And then, of course, we have Vice Chair Huffman, who represents council, and then we have Mayor Chop, who represents Norfolk County as a whole. So with that, I will move on because I've been told that I talk a lot, but I think it's important that communication and everyone is aware of what's taking place. So if there's no other questions of the board or to Vice Chair Huffman or myself, oh, sorry, Member Van Houten.
Yeah, no, just a quick question to both of you, I guess, in a certain way. I think a lot of these conferences, you get the most out of it just talking to others from other different boards. And I've never been to one of these for this particular Police Services Board, but was there a lot of opportunity to talk to other boards across the province? Because you kind of learn a lot from that. I find that to be like the most effective part of those conferences.
Yes, there were numerous. It was a very well laid out conference in terms of that opportunity for not quote unquote free time, but
Yeah.
a chance to network and things like that. And you had different opportunities at different parts of the day. So it was very worthwhile in terms of talking to other individuals from different police service boards. And I found it very beneficial. And I know, George, we kind of split up and tried to cover the masses and meet as many people as possible.
That's correct, Vice Chair Huffman. And just to add to the provincial appointee, Mr. Van Houten, the important thing with networking is the issues, again, that we have here in Norfolk are resonating up north and to our west and to our east. What it comes down to is leadership. The Police Service Board is looked upon as a vessel. So the people are our stakeholders are looking for leadership and they want answers. And whatever the questions that come out, but then the PSB, the Police Service Board, also looks to our chief of police for leadership. And I do believe that since May, since she's been our chief, we have some positivity and we are headed in the right direction. So I echo what Vice Chair Huffman has said and can only say that things can only get better, for sure. So thank you, Member Van Houten, for bringing that up. Mayor Chop, are you still on? Oh, she is. Okay. Great. Your Worship, do you have any questions?
No questions.
Sorry, no? Okay, thank you. Okay, so if there are no other questions, I will ask that a motion be put forth to receive this updated information from Vice Chair Huffman and myself. A lot of motions here. Vice Chair Huffman has made a motion, seconded by Mr. Van Houten. All in favor? Okay, motion is carried. Okay, so we're moving on. 9.4, information memo. The recovered bike donation. So I'm going to ask our board secretary, administrator, Aaron Plant, to please enlighten us in regards to 9.4. And at the same time, if we could have the lights turned on here, if that's possible.
Mr. Chair, can we just take a 5-minute recess just to get the lights on and get that all figured out?
Okay, that's perfect. Thank you. So we'll take 5 minutes. Thank you very much. For the general public.
My name is Jim Toombs. I'm an Associate Purchasing Specialist here at Toyotetsu, also known as TTCA. Here at Toyotetsu, we're responsible for supplying Toyota with car parts, mainly automotive frame for the Lexus, the Corolla, and other Toyota models. I started here in May of 2016. I was in welding. Here I am 2 years later, and I'm a salaried position. The job itself it's challenging. There are challenges in what I have to do every day, and for that I enjoy it. It's not monotonous day in, day out. There's new challenges that I'm confronted with and new tasks that I have to do. A high school student who's like, I'm not sure, I think this is an excellent opportunity to kind of answer that question for themselves. They can see what kind of the working world is like, as well as pick up skills. There are plenty of opportunities here. For example, for me, I was in welding, but that didn't mean I had to stay there. There's opportunities in stamping, where you'd learn different skills entirely. PC, again, the same thing, some different skills needed that you'd learn. Though we make car parts and they're welded, there are a lot of departments and areas that support that.
My name's Aaron Pace. I'm a yard manager here at Townsend Lumber. We are a sawmill that produces lumber. We make anywhere from rail ties to timber frame home products, kiln-dried lumber, which is used for wood cabinets and furniture. We also do pallet components, and we also do stakes for farming. We ship container loads to the Middle East, we ship it to Asia. We have gone to Mexico, Singapore. We've shipped to many different locations. My father has worked here for 30 years. He got me a part-time job as a summer student. I started as a regular piler, as a laborer at the entry-level position, and with hard work and dedication, I've been promoted through the system, and it took 9 years to become a supervisor. I enjoy the freedom of the job, like outside working with the heavy industrial stuff, talking to the range of customers and the way we produce things for them.
My name is Cam Kirkwood. I'm a production supervisor at Superior Essex in Simcoe. We make magnet wire and cable for the transformer industries. Our magnet wire products are found all around you that most people don't even notice, in winding motors, in alternators in your vehicles, transformers on the side of the road or on top of poles. I've been here at the company for 15 years. I started on the floor as a machine operator for 7 years, and then I did a stint in engineering for about a year, and then I moved on to production supervisor for the last 7. One of the best parts about working here is it is a build-to-order shop.
Mr. Chair, we're live again.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Plum. Good morning once again to everyone. We will start by asking our board administrator to present the information in regards to the recovered bike donation information that has been sent to us. It's in the agenda, and I believe that is on the last page of the agenda, if I'm not mistaken, which is page 57 and page 58. So Aaron, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to the board. The information memo is before you on page 58. Currently, the Ontario Provincial Police has several recovered bikes which need a new permanent home. The former police chief, Sean Johnson, had inquired if the board would be open to donating the bikes to a local organization which provides bicycles to migrant workers. Staff have reviewed this thoroughly, and they have commented that there's some concern with legality regarding donating the bikes. That information is included in the memo, and I'll be happy to answer any questions, but really what the board needs to do is decide what they want to do with these bikes.
Okay, that's fairly clear. Everyone's had an opportunity to look at the memo. Do we have any questions to this?
Just a
Member
quick-
Van Houten?
Yeah, just the recovered bikes, aren't they normally auctioned?
Through you, Mr. Chair, to the member, I think the police chief may comment on that more than I could. This is just what Police Johnson communicated to staff, but what they were recommending to be done with these bikes.
Chief Case, do you want to comment?
The board receives funds from the sale of the recovered property from the OPP, and I believe that Inspector Johnson just inquired as to whether or not, instead of funds pertaining to the sale of them, if the board would look at the donation of the bikes to members in the community that require it for transportation purposes.
Thank you, Chief. So Member Van Houten?
Yeah, I know as well. That, I think the suggestion by former police chief Johnson, it's very kind, but I know from my own experience as well, they had bikes themselves, the guides we have from Jamaica, but they're not really being used anymore. They have, international driver's license, and we find it just safer to have a vehicle for them. So I think from a practicality standpoint of view, and there's concerns from the county as well. So I would suggest that we do it like we always done it before, kind of, if it went to auction, and those funds from that auction would all stay in the community anyway. Right. So I would agree with the suggestion made here that we leave it like we always did it before.
Thank you, Member Van Houten. Vice Chair Huffman, I saw your hand up.
Thank you, Chair Santos, through you. My recommendation would be the same. When we're looking at, unfortunately, with the legal costs of it, that could amount to, as they state in the staff report here, several $1,000s. So as generous as that idea was, it probably is more work than it is worth, which is unfortunate. But we're in a day of liability. So I would recommend that we leave the recovered bikes in the auction and the community have access to the funds after that.
Hey, Madam Vice Chair, thank you for your comments. Mayor Chop, do you have any comments on this issue?
No comments. I would be totally comfortable with staff's suggestion that, an agreement would be executed to indicate that we wouldn't be held liable. I don't think that we can protect for liability in all situations, and sometimes I think it goes a little bit too far. However, that said, I'm comfortable with proceeding in the way that we always have in terms of the auction and the funds being used for, other community goods. So however the board chooses to proceed is fine in my view, but I wouldn't let, again, I think our risk management team is expressing their concerns, as is their job to do, but sometimes we have to sort of balance what is that level of risk that we're willing to accept. And I think in certain cases, perhaps that is maybe going too far.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So as everyone is aware, our previous police chief, Chief Johnson, brought this up. I think it was a great public relations. It has been done in other municipalities and it's worked well, but I've heard what the board has actually said. So it's fairly clear that we will just take this information, memo regarding the recovered bike donations, and receive it as information and move on. That's what I understand here. So with that, If there's no other comment, Chief Case, do you have any comment on this or?
Chair, no, not directly. I can tell you that it went through our risk management legal as well, and we didn't see any liability from our standpoint. So just so you know that it did go through our legal branch as well.
Okay, so the board's basically made it very clear. So with that, we'll receive this as information, and I'm going to need a motion to receive that information. Vice Chair Huffman has made a motion, seconded by Member Van Houten. All in favor? Okay, that's carried. Thank you, Mr. Plump, for the information put forth. Moving on, 9.5. We're getting there. 9.5, Councillor Huffman or Vice Chair Huffman, enforcement at community safety zones. So the floor is yours, Vice Chair Huffman. When I saw the word enforcement at community safety zones, I didn't think we had any, but maybe we do. So if you can enlighten us, I'd appreciate it.
Thank you, Chair, through you. I am here to enlighten you. We have one. Just recently, within the last couple of weeks, we have deemed, I'm speaking on behalf of Council, bringing it forward from 14th Street on Norfolk. So we're looking at Norfolk Street North. So from 14th Street to 2nd Ave, that area has been deemed a community safety zone. So what will entail, what happens next is that there will be signage made to let drivers know that this is a community safety zone. As people are aware, the fines and such raise significantly if there is an infraction in these community safety zones. Some people may question that it doesn't meet some of the typical standards for a community safety zone, as there is no school in the area. But after careful deliberation and feedback from the community at large, we felt that it was necessary. One of the main components of this decision is the fact that the average speed on Norfolk Street North is 78 kilometers, which is completely unacceptable in a 50-kilometer zone. So we felt that we didn't have time to waste, and with the access to the trails, the park, the funeral home, the place of worship, the children who are getting on and off buses on a 4-lane roadway, that it was prudent to move and enforce this as a community safety zone. So I'm guessing, I don't know if any information has come to you or if this is your formal notification. This is our first one, so you'll have to. You've got the notification? Okay.
Yes, we did.
Okay, thank you very much. So that is my explanation on the community safety zone.
Thank you, Vice Chair Huffman. That's an enlightening news, and I'm actually impressed, to say the least. Are there any questions of the board to Vice Chair Huffman on this issue? Vice Chair Huffman, I have a question. My understanding is having this zoned a safety zone, a community safety zone, that fines can double. Is that correct? Is that correct, Chief Case?
That's my understanding, but I will let the experts answer.
Through you, Chair. I don't know the exact, I'd have to look that up to know exactly what the increase is. I know it's significant, but sorry, I don't know the exact increase.
Thanks for your honesty, Chief. So, Vice Chair Huffman, when I'm looking at this, and I know we've had deputations in the back from Colburn Village, which is reference to concession 14 to Davis Street. We can have an enforcement of community safety zones, but the question here is the OPP will enforce. So I think it's important that the members of Colburn Village are aware that the enforcement will be there, but it's not going to be 24/7, and they're aware of that, correct?
They were made very aware of that. They're aware of the limitations of the overall enforcement, but bringing this forward to the OPP as one of our first designations of a community safety zone, and with the electronic speed signs there, and hopefully with overall awareness, we will get rid of some of the repeat offenders.
Thank you, Vice Chair Huffman. I also want to make mention here that this is going to open up a Pandora box in Norfolk County. I mean, this is a positive movement on behalf of council and the mayor. But I'm just thinking of police services with regards to issues that we've had on St. John's Road, issues that we've had in Renton, but this is very specific for in town. Is that correct, Vice Chair Huffman?
There are a number of criteria that need to be met in order for it to become a community safety zone. And we felt that one of with enough of, as I had previously mentioned, you know, with the place of worship, the funeral home, the bus routes, the retail, the trails, the park, et cetera, and also just some of the actual facts of the road is that there is a very narrow median from the road to the sidewalk, and there's a large number of pedestrian traffic in that area. And one of the defining factors was that 78-kilometer average speed of people coming in. It's a very different entranceway into that from the heading south from the north end there. As with the other entrances, there's stoplights and things like that, and just automatically slow you down, almost in built-in traffic calming measures. There are no traffic calming measures in this area, and it's just kind of a free-for-all coming off a highway, the provincial highway, like 24, and then right into a residential area. So we're hopeful that I don't think it will open a Pandora's box because there is such strict criteria for it.
Thank you, Vice Chair Huffman, and kudos to council for passing this. I know the petitions have been out, and I know the OPP over the last several years have continually enforced, and they've had complaints, and they've been out. It has made a difference. The signage has made a difference. Hopefully this will open some eyes. The question here is an average speed of 78 in the 50. Unacceptable.
Practically stunt driving.
Thank you, Vice Chair Huffman. Any other questions of Vice Chair Huffman on this issue? No other questions? Okay, so I'm going to require a motion to receive the discussion that we just put forth. Member Van Houten, I need a seconder. Seconded by Vice Chair Huffman. Thank you very much, and we'll move on to the agenda. Point 10, correspondence arising from the previous business. So that's point 10. We're getting close to the end. Is there any correspondence arising from the previous business? Seeing none, we'll move on to question period, and question period is usually put forth to the media or to the public. So if the media is present, either via Zoom or here, by all means, anybody in the public that wants to put forth comments or concerns can ask. By all means, yes, you have your hand up. If you can just explain who you are and where you're from and the issue or concern or question.
The chairman, yes, I'm Daphne Schuyler and I live in Waterford. With all due respect to the bylaw department, bylaw is responsible for enforcing bylaws, not criminal laws. Bylaw is issuing parking tickets to organized crime. Please have the OPP enforce the criminality of illegal grow-ops. The public wants to, when the public wants to request a deputation and goes to the PSB website and clicks on the link, you're flipped over to the council link for a deputation request to council. It is not the mandate of the council to decide who can speak at a PSB meeting. Why is it set up like this?
Okay, so you've posed two questions, bylaw and OPP. So Mrs. Schuyler, what I will do is I'll ask our chief of police to answer those two questions in reference to one bylaw and the OPP crime. So if you can if you could turn around and just, Chief Kays, I guess I'll leave that question to you, please. And thank you. You heard the question, Chief?
Yeah, through you, Chair. I can't speak directly about the bylaw enforcement. I don't have any information pertaining to what they do or do not do in that community, but I can speak to criminality. I don't know what the specific complaint is in regards to your jurisdiction and what you're talking about, but I can ensure that any criminality that comes to the OPP's attention, that we certainly take that seriously and we enforce it as we can.
Okay, Vice Chair Huffman?
I think that our clerk would be best to answer the question in regards to why it goes from the PSB or from the OPP to the PSB to council. You would know best.
If I may, Vice Chair Huffman, I think that's the second question. We'll just focus on the first question first, if that's okay. And then we'll go to the second question. Is that fair? And yes, I'll direct it to our board secretary, because that's definitely a concern based on what I've just heard. So Chief, if you want to just finish, or have you finished?
If there's a specific complaint about something directly related to your area, it needs to come to our attention to make a complaint to the detachment in order for us to do enforcement specifically about criminality. If there's a criminal complaint, it needs to be directed towards our office so that we can enforce it.
Okay, so Mrs. Schuyler, if you can go back up to the mic, please. Do you have a direct question in reference to criminality?
We have lots of examples where we have spoken to the OPP and definite incidents, but I am confident, and I hope it's not misplaced, that Inspector Case will do a much better job.
Okay, so what I'll do, Mrs. Schuyler, is this. If I could have you and Chief Kays possibly have a meeting, and if you have any specifics, she will address it with her staff, the staff sergeants or the deputy or the acting staff sergeants, and hopefully enlighten you to what's taking place and answer those questions personally, one-on-one. Is that fair?
Yes, I appreciate that.
Okay. Chief Kays, you're okay with that?
Through you, Chair, in fairness, I think if there is a specific complaint, yeah, I have no issues answering questions, but if there is an actual incident that they would like to report, that it's advantageous to come into the office to make that report. If it's a call for service, of course, it needs to go through the our communication center. If it's something that's ongoing at the time, that needs to go through our communication center to have an officer respond. If it's something that there's a concern regarding previous occurrences that have not been followed up on or anything like that, then it'd be advantageous to come into the office and speak to the staff sergeants or myself, who's ever there at the time.
Okay, thank you, Chief. Does that clarify your one point, Mrs. Schuyler? Sorry, if you can go back up to the mic at the podium. Thank you.
Sorry. Yes, we have gone to the previous police inspector and numerous times and didn't get anywhere, but I really would like to speak with Detective Cates. Or not. Inspector. Yes, yes.
Also known as our Chief of Police. And
Okay.
I think, Mrs. Schuyler, it would be advantageous that you have a one-on-one and bring up those issues. It sounds like you have fire in your belly and you have issues. So I would suggest that we follow the leadership of our Chief of Police, and hopefully in the next few days or week, that can be addressed. Okay. Now on point number 2, if I can go to point number 2, Vice Chair Huffman has I think, led us in the right direction. So I'm going to ask our board secretary to try to answer that question in regards to the deputation and that form that you referred to. So if you can, please.
Through you, Mr. Chair, can I just have that question repeated?
You want to turn on your
Yes.
mic, Mrs. Schuyler? Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
I'm slow, but I got it. When the public wants to request a deputation and goes to the PSW website, there's a link on there. You click on the link, it gets flipped over to the council link for a deputation to council. And that gives you different information. It says a 5-minute instead of 10. And you think you've put in your deputation to the PSB, but you haven't. You don't hear back. And it's not the mandate of the council who decides who gets to speak at the PSB meeting. So why is it set up like that?
Through you, Mr. Chair, thank you for that question. The Police Services Board doesn't have dedicated staff solely to their service area. They share staff with legislative service, the other county staff. So I'll need to look into that exactly why it was set up that way. I did set up that deputations website. I could amend it to make it a little more clear to make sure that if you want to speak to Police Services Board, that there's a separate website and link like that. But I apologize that you weren't receiving the confirmation about your deputation interest.
Okay, my point too is that it was always went into the Police Services Board before. Now, why did it change so that it went to council instead of PSB? Somebody had to go in, authorize it, and go in and change it.
So just to confirm, Mr. Chair, you're referring to the deputations website, Norfolk County Deputations?
There is one, you go under the Police Services Board, and there's one there. You click onto it, it flips you over to the council deputation request.
I see Mayor Chop's hand. Mayor Chop, do you want to comment on this?
Yeah, I don't know what the change, why something would have happened on the website, but we've certainly had, obviously over this term of council, many deputies that come directly to the Police Services Board. I think there's a little bit of a misunderstanding here. Council doesn't, in a sense, look at these and decide whether it's going to go to a council meeting or to a Police Services Board meeting. If somebody directed the clerk that they wish to speak at the Police Services Board, that's what's occurred. I think staff can certainly go and investigate why there just isn't a separate form that's available to direct it specifically for the Police Services Board. We can go and get that fixed. There wouldn't have been any direction to change it otherwise. If something has happened, I'm confident it would have just been done error by staff, because we've had many deputies come to the Police Services Board, and that's not a decision of council per se who that's going to go to. So we'll take that, and I'm sure Aaron and Teresa can go and have a look at the website and make sure that there's at least somewhere to specify that they want the deputation Police Services Board.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Back to our board secretary administrator, Mr. Plott.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. So we recently launched a new website. I'm looking at it now, just to streamline deputation processes. There used to be a hard copy paperwork, was a little bit lengthy for deputations. Now there's just one website. See that there isn't an option actually to choose Police Services Board, though there is the option to choose other. So that's, we can make it a bit more clear going forward, but if you would choose the option other, it would come up with an option to fill it out, to type in Police Services Board. But going forward, we'll make sure this is a lot more clear. So I appreciate that feedback. It's helpful, because we will make sure, the customer experience is as best as possible, and that anyone wishing to come to council or come to a Police Services Board meeting has easy access. So thank you for that information. It's very helpful to staff.
So, Mrs. Scudder, before you sit down, just so that you're aware, the Police Services Board is an arm's length of council. So we are independent. So thank you for bringing that to my attention, or to our attention. And I do believe with the qualified staff that would be rectified. And I apologize if that has caused any issue or issues, but thank you for bringing it to our attention. And I know with regards to the website, I mean, we've heard it here today that we're limited staff. We actually are very limited as a Police Service Board, and that might change in the next few months in reference to that, because I think it's imperative that people understand that the Police Service Board here, with any issues or concerns, and we're an oversight body of the OPP, like I have said prior. Whatever issues we have a counselor, we have a mayor around the table, and we also have a community member at large and 2 provincial appointees. So with that information should go to council and to the mayor. Then it's up to council and to the mayor to follow through. And again, with the OPP. So this is imperative, and it's paramount that we all work together as a team. So thank you for bringing it to our attention. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And if it wasn't broken, it didn't need to be fixed. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mrs. Schuyler. Okay. Any other questions? All right, well, thank you, everyone. We're going to move on here to point 11, which refers to adjournment. So before we adjourn, I wanted to just ask the question of our next meeting. I know that that meeting is usually fixed already prior to this. So, Board Administrator Plot, if you could just explain.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to the board. A few months ago, I brought forward an information memo regarding proposed dates that were ratified. And as per that memo, the next meeting date was determined for Tuesday, December 13th, 2022 at 9 p.m. If the board wishes to amend that, we can do that now. Otherwise, that is the next meeting date. That is again, December 13th. Looks like it's a Tuesday, but maybe that's a clerical amendment. Yeah.
Yeah, I
It
believe
must be
usually-
the 14th. Apologies for that.
So it would be Wednesday, December the 14th. Is that correct?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. And just so that everyone around here, around the table and the public and the OPP, when we meet on December the 14th, which is a Wednesday of 2020, we might have some different faces or we might have the same faces. We'll have to wait and see. Public will let us know one way or the other. From my standpoint as chair of the Police Service Board, like I had said, that on October the 31st of this year, my term ends. I've been asked if I want to be reappointed, and I did tell the Solicitor General's office that I wouldn't have a problem taking on another 3 years, but there's a process that has to take place. So with that, I just wanted to reassure everyone here that I might be here or I might not, but it's been a pleasure working with the Police Service Board members and of course our OPP and members of the public. I can tell you I'm not a politician, but I've received more phone calls in the last 3 years from the general public on speeding and cannabis and issues. From my perspective in dealing with, I believe we've had 3 police chiefs and 4 deputy clerks and 3 secretaries or 4. A lot of changeover, but I can tell you that I'm very confident as the chair of the Police Service Board, and I speak very highly of our chief of police, that we are headed in the right direction here in Norfolk County. With respect to our councillor and mayor, wish them lots of luck in this election. And to our member Van Houten, I believe your term is the end of March, if I'm not mistaken, but again, the same process will take place. So this is a public forum and it's important that everybody is aware that 2 appointments are made by the Solicitor General's office. So the 2 public appointees are Mr. Van Houten and myself, which of course we represent the province and appointed by the province. And then our member Cruz, who is also appointed at large for Norfolk County, his term is over, I believe, at the end of December, December 31st of this year. That's my understanding. So I just want to enlighten everyone of this. Mayor Chomp, did I miss anything? Is that pretty well? I see thumbs up. It's probably the first time I've got a thumbs up from the mayor, but this is good. Thank you, Your Worship. If there's no other questions, I would ask, please, that Mrs. Scarlett, April, if you don't mind staying so that we could arrange a date for the Chief of Police and I to meet with you in the next day or 2. Please and thank you. And to the members of the public, thanks for coming out. And we hear you. We've heard you. As the Vice Chair of the Police Service Board, I want to make something very clear. The federal government, in reference to cannabis, downloaded these issues down to the municipality. And the municipalities were dealt with, let's put it this way, and this is frustrating, with a major file of cannabis, which of course everybody knows in October of 2018, it was just put on to the municipalities, which if we look at it and we really think about this, my opinion should have been they look at the federal government and say, hey, you know what, this is like the tobacco industry. And if federal government, instead of downloading it to the municipality, put it to and left it with them, the federal government, and treated the cannabis such as they do tobacco, because tobacco, of course, is very strict, rigid laws. And Member Van Houten is a tobacco farmer. He knows exactly how that works. That would have made our job much easier at the Police Services Board and, of course, with the municipality. And I'm not speaking on behalf of the municipality. I'm just educating the public to say, hey, this is a very difficult issue. With reference to the OPP, they're doing everything possible. Can we do better? Always. We can always do better. And the trust is there. What I think the general public needs to understand right now is that the OPP are very limited. So we've put it to the bylaw. Now, bylaw in our county works from 9 to 5, and that's reality. So these issues that are coming up, and I know Jim Milson and that one bylaw officer that's dealing with this, we heard today, and I'll just rephrase it, we heard that there was 120 down to 12. That's amazing. So with that, I just want to close and adjourn this meeting and thank everybody once again. If there's any other comments of the board, by all means we can. If not, I'll close by saying thank you once again. It's been a pleasure. And we will adjourn.
A mover and a seconder.
So we'll need a mover and seconder, moved by Vice Chair Huffman and seconded by Member Van Houten. All in favor? Thank you very much, everyone. The meeting's closed.